What's up, everybody? All right, got a little bit of goofy VFX stuff to do. I'm gonna go live. Some of you programmer folks might, or artists who just buy this stuff, see how not super scary it can be. So what we're working on here is, this is our game. This is our game screen. When this little stamper slams down, I need a little dust floof. And I don't have one that I love, so I'm kind of making the pieces like all of the ones that I had laying around from past clients or whatever that I had done myself. Were like a little bit too cartoony. I'm gonna say this, and you're gonna be like, "That looks way too cartoony," but it'll be fine, trust me. So just what I've blocked out all my frames, and I just use Photoshop because I'm old. I use the oldest. So it's just 8 frames. It doesn't need to be quick. It doesn't need to be overwhelming, because there's going to be more stuff going on. So just what I want to do here is block out the shape. So this transition's a little not quite there. Oops, too hard to see. All right. If we get the shape right on everything, it can be pretty cartoony. And it'll still look fine. And we'll add some soft pieces with some of our spiffy shader stuff. Right, so you can imagine these are going to be like some number of them radiating off the stamp location. Because the whole game has this really diegetic. I've got minis sitting over here on my table because I'm a maniac. Can't prioritize anything. All right, that's not true. I'm imparting some amount of wisdom to you. That's worth it. But there's going to be a big jump here. So it's just 8 frames. This is frame 3. And then each step, you just kind of resolve each little bit. That's it. All the basic rules of animation apply. Squash and stretch and blah, 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 blah. And like, don't think you have to really understand those or be educated in them. I wasn't. I read Chuck Jones's autobiography as a kid. That's good enough. It's probably about all you need to do. Which is a good one in general. That's worth getting. I can't remember the name of it. Chuck Jones, of course, being the guy who like directed most of the Looney Tunes stuff. which, if you don't know what the Looney Tunes stuff is, good gravy, what does the world come to? See, this chunk here aligns too much. It's not telling enough of the story. Gotta give it more shape to sell this dividing of the chunks, right? Let's see. Oh no, that's not what I want. Alrighty. So more or less each step I just turn down the resolution or the opacity of the previous layer. Right, and so the dust is gonna go fast from the start point, but then it's gonna slow down and then like right disintegrate. So we got to be careful with like this piece is too far down this tail. So this guy's got to scooch up. And then I've got to keep, right? There's this little bit of this tail from last time. Oh, I thought even on the right screen. There you go. Use your imagination. So here's where we're at. Let's flip back through them real quick. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Like, blink your eyes. 2, 3, 4. Right. And then we're working on 5. Okay. So I added in these little swoops that weren't in my initial sketch. So I'm just making sure that they mostly in the right spots. And this is starting to get a little complex. Like I could be cuter and do more of that all over, but do a little bit up here. Nice to give it a little dimensionality or directionality. And it's not necessary to like take every one of these little blobs all the way. This one collapses too much. Go. That's just about good enough. That's fine. That's fine. All right. So now we've got to add a little more value. Let's find a good brush for this. I say find a good brush, like I don't just use one brush for everything. This is the brush that I do like everything. I rarely switch brushes unless I'm doing something specific. So real quick, I'll go through and I'll just make a group for every layer. Then I just want to build up. I'll basically do the same thing we just did, but on a per group basis. Define the shape, give it like almost like a height map. It's kind of what we want, but with some complexity. Knock down our opacity just a touch. I would normally do that on my tablet, I have the old XL tablet, and I use the airbrush nib, and they told me like a Wacom rep told me like 7 years ago, like, you're weird. I was like, oh great. Everything I love gets taken off the menu. And here's where it's like most important to sell these volumes. Don't have to be super precise. Right, if we wanted to be more precise here, we'd do this more graphic, kind of like that initial pass. Because it's easier to kind of keep all the little blobs cohesive, but we don't have to super care. We don't have to care. Right, like it's very easy. This is important. This is an actually important, useful thing I'm going to say in this stream. The game is not this particle, right? The game is not the rock. The game is not the sidearm model. The game is not the barrel. The game is not, right? Like whatever the asset is. The game is not the UI code on the engineering side. Very easy for people to get distracted by the minutia. It's not like a thing. It's not a thing. Don't get distracted by the minutia. There's only one game on the market at any point in history that is going to be the best looking game. So unless you have the budget to keep up with whatever Epic is putting out, don't bother trying to be that thing. The only thing that matters is that what you do is unified, right? That it looks like it fits together and that it looks like it fits the game. Everything else is a waste of time. Right? It's very easy to become a concept artist or a 3D modeler or whatever and not be a game developer. But the business model is games. Everybody in the enterprise must be a game developer. So, you know, don't lose sight of the big picture. Nobody's going to agonize over this little particle that's just here to sweeten, right? Like we could get away with just a circle. That'd be okay, but you know, there's like a difference between 0% good and 70% good. You want to make that jump fast. But the 70 to 100% is exponentially more expensive, right? Don't do that one. That one's a trap. Just gonna fix these little, oh, I can't. Just want to fix these opacities real quick. Get these all back to 100 so it's a little easier to jump between chunks here. Right, just a little bit on those to kind of help sell the directionality. It's nice. Like I said, it doesn't take much. bit thicker on that guy. Still kind of want to keep the high spots to the leading edge, you know, at this phase of this little dust puff's life. It's gonna accumulate mass at the front. Think about how it would work. Just a little bit, not too much. Again, you don't have to be perfect. We still want this one. But getting down to the end here, then we'll do the easy tricks, the easy tricks step. Make it look a lot better. So we're gonna spend, I don't know, I maybe spent 10 minutes before I turned on the stream on this. There you go. You're like, why are you streaming the stupid particle? It's because it keeps me from goofing around so much. And I'll ramble a little bit and I might learn something. Trying to string the words together, you know. I'm at a weird crossroads with Signet where there's a handful of just like slightly too annoying things to do. And so I'm instead just doing a kind of fun, low value thing. I say low value, but it does need some juice on this screen still. Because the big ticket parts are gonna be a little obnoxious to tackle. Expensive, obnoxious, I'm not sure what the right word is, right? But like at some point I've got to go make all the buildings. I've got some asset store stuff plugged in there now, and it's fine for now. Like you could play the game and it's fine. And it could ship with those models, and I could just redo the textures, and that would be okay. It wouldn't be great, right? It doesn't tell enough of that world's story. So that's a thing that eventually I need to do, but I have a plan for that. And it's not hard. It's just like a doing it thing that's not the difference for the project right now. You're like, what's up with that? Well, the Steam page is almost live. I've just got to get enough done to have the trailer look compelling. And then that will get us there. All right, so now we've got all 8 frames of our animation. So we'll do a 4x2 flip book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my layers. This is my extremely scientific approach to this. There's probably like a real way to do this. We'll collapse all these, make them easier to grab. Okay. Control-Alt-C. Why can't I remember canvas size? There we go. Stroking out for a minute. Okay, looks like we don't have snaps turned on. Come on, switch to the other one. So now I'm just moving each layer to its right spot in the chain. So now you can see the layout. Swoosh. Old Wacom Cintiq companion. Man, I had one of those and I loved it. I had the first gen one that ran Windows. And then eventually the power supply died. And they were just like, yeah, we're not making parts for these anymore. It's really sad. Played a ton of Civ and Prison Architect. And did some nice paintings on it. I love those things. It was his awesome device. But everybody's just iPad and Procreate. And I don't know. There's something about the good quality pen that I think is a different animal. All right. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna merge all this. And we're gonna motion blur it. All right. I'm gonna dupe it first. It's probably a little bit too much. You're like, don't you want to do this decreasing amounts? Yeah, I could, but yeah, no. Nah. So I duped a layer. We've got our blurred layer here. And instead of keeping it aligned, we're going to scooch it back a little bit more. We're going to do it again. Turn it down some more. Scooch it back a little bit more. Looks pretty good. All right, let's see how it looks. Let's just save this. Oh gosh, I gotta remember. Once you start dealing with a million projects, gets, between client projects and then the multiple versions of foliage renderer, gotta juggle, and then the in development versions of foliage renderer, and then all the render pipelines, and then all the Unity versions. It's hard to remember. Hard to remember where I've got everything. All right, so remember, this is where we're gonna add this. All right. All right, this guy is where we want to add this thing. We'll add it to the sealer, I think. Oh, you love to see it. Now you're making a video game. Oh, Unity. I swear, sometimes you click to make a new thing and it's just gone. Do I have my particle stuff in this project? Looks like I don't at the moment. So we will just go with just do one of these. Now this is a pretty inefficient kind of texture. I would normally like to have more data in here. Like I like to do this kind of thing a lot, right? I have 3 textures in this candle smoke and then let them all do stuff. This is kind of lousy. It's fine. It's just not great. I'm going to make it linear though, so you get the full color range. We may change our mind about that, but for now, that's what we'll plan on. We got to go down here. Unity used to just plug the default particle material in here. I guess they quit doing that with all the render pipelines. It's about when that coincided. But then you're stuck with the stupid things. And we need texture sheet animation. It is 4 by 2, and they always start at the beginning. All right. Horizontal billboards. May want that to be stretched because we want them to be aligned. There we go. It needs to be. All right, now you can see our little flip book here. Let's just set this to a legacy thing that's going to give me less sass about just going to be additive, maybe. All right, we need to flip our speed, looks like. Decrease the radius. Decrease our size. Short duration. We don't need rate over time. We need a burst. 4 to 7. Changing size over lifetime here. This is a nice way to get a... I don't like to start at 0 though. Usually you want to start about halfway. Then when we do some of this, come in here, we'll just soften the edges of the whole thing. Right, like a short little fade in, have it be mostly solid, and then just a little bit of fade out at the end. That's what I want to align to direction. I don't want these to be stretched. Well, align to direction doesn't want to play ball. And I'm not rotating these. Can't make me Unity. It's pretty good, but I think we got too many. They're a little too big still. That's pretty good. All right. I think that'll do it for step one. All right. All right, so next up, we want to find or make a little smoke curl would be pretty nice, wouldn't it? I don't know if we want to mess with that though. We need a little shockwave ring. Let's also make this not white. Much better. Doesn't need to be fully opaque either. There's always the danger of turning stuff like that down too far though, so, you know. Don't get carried away. All right. So what I'm looking at here is do tween sequencer module that is part of my Cortex stack that I cart from project to project. So it lets me build do tween sequences without writing code, which makes it very easy to go back and add stuff and expose all the properties I care about without having to mess around too much. So I can call this one dust particle. Now the part about it that's a little bit tricky is you're gonna want to grab the actual particle system here. Come on, you goofy thing. Give me this actual particle system as my target object. I may need to change this. And I may need to find play particle if it's not. Oh, here we go, particle tweet. So I can target now the slam particle And I want to insert it at the same time as the shake. Let's say it's a half-second long. All right. Let's see if we can find a little shockwave real quick. You know what? We'll paint one. We can paint one. It doesn't need to be 512. I'm not a big fan of overmastering. You know, it just makes the project harder to pull if you ever add people, or if you've already got people. Come on, Photoshop, just move this ruler. Oh, this is why we can't have nice things. You're all gonna be witnesses to murder when I kill this mouse. I cannot for the life of me take it. Just gonna have to do it all with the tablet. Wacom used to make a mouse that you could put on your tablet. That was pretty cool. All right, we're gonna put a little stroke on this, and this will be our reference line for our frames. And we'll do basically the same approach. And really, all we're doing is we're sort of identifying the lumps as we go, and then eroding space in between. Right, so layer 1 is that. Layer 2 is like this. Guess what? Layer 3 gonna be even smaller. Oops, a little carried away there. For concept art, I try to never undo. But for this kind of thing, you don't always, you kind of want to preserve your layer integrity. You can't just treat it like a canvas and call it a day. Okay, so that's our reference. We need one more. We'll just do a little, oh, this will be fast. It'll be a little 4-frame. So you can see I'm just ever so slightly pushing them out as they go, right? We can rely on the particle system's particle motion for a lot of that, so we don't have to be too cute. But it does make a little bit of a difference. And just like before, there we go. Easy peasy. Save it back over here. You got to be careful with this kind of thing depending on your target platform. It's very easy to just slather one particle with like 15 different pieces, right? All right, we'll use that same thing, but we'll I swear it's just trying to kill me. If we go in here, we'll then duplicate this particle system, make it a child, give it a new name. We don't need a shape anymore. Do need a different material. I gotta get a new mouse. Gotta get a new mouse. And emission, we just need one. Don't need any speed. We do want a random start rotation. Set this guy to loop so we can get a look at it. We'll give this guy just a touch negative gravity. Okay, that's the kind of thing we want, but we want a softer fade. And this guy should be faster as well. needs a little bit of a delay. Still feels like it lasts too long. Shave another 1/10 of a second off. Maybe not. Maybe it needs to be longer. Yeah, I think just want it to line up with the other pieces just a little bit more. It's pretty close. Pretty close. We'll tone it down a notch here. All right, and then the last piece we're going to add is we're going to add some of these little almost like anamorphic dust motes, which I think I've got a particle for material for in here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. All right, and for this, we'll make these a cone. Dust, regular billboard, and then the real money is the noise. Pretty sure the candles have dust on them. Oh, at a bizarre scale, because they're parented to these guys. Ah. Yeah, they do need to be tinier. All right, and these should have a random start size. And they need to be up in the air a little bit more. And with a longer lifetime. Oh, there they go. Very hard to see. Still far too big. There we go, that's better. Too much gravity. I bet our noise strength is far too great. There we go. It's very subtle. You have to really magnify your eyeballs to see that. All right. Oh, far too much gravity. Still too much gravity. This is still not high enough. Okay, not that far. Come on. Okay, now we've got our frequency too high. And our angle's too high also. Is it worth trying to mess with dampening? I don't think so. Just want more fade out. And they're still just too big. That's nice. This is nice when you're debugging in Unity particle setup. Show only selected. So you can look at just one part of your thing. Because now we got 3 parts. This is pretty good. This is probably all that needs to happen for the dust. All right. And, long term, we'll probably do like the icon of whatever thing you've stamped down. That'll get like, and then the little building will grow out of the wax splat, right? Remember where we do this kind of thing? Then the shader's already set up to do that dissolve between the buildings. I've just got to hook up the tween for it. So it'll be dust. That thing will pick up. You get like the glowy icon can fade away, and then the building can, I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe the building comes up and then the icon flies up off of it. We'll mess with all that. But helping reinforce this selection, because right now these are a little hard to see. I don't quite know what to do about that. Your little buildings are your different little sealer stamps. You know, I don't quite have a fix for that in my brain. All right, what's next? Maybe we will sketch something. What have we got that we could sketch? We probably need to do these. The seals. So I painted a height map and then I turned it into an AO and a normal map. Maybe you want to keep that around. All right, let's see. Let's get a list of our tiles handy. Okay. And then let's see if we can find, maybe I had a working file where I was sketching these. Those are nice. Work on that too. That's relatively easy. I don't have to use too much of my brain. Let's do that. Let's work on map tiles. So we got a couple forests. What is this? Iron deposit? Yeah. Gold deposit. Let's do this. Let's look at board tiles. Stone deposit. A pond. And there's a bunch that are just fields. It's a hill. Very nice. A swamp. Got a couple deserts. All right. We'll do rivers. Do rivers here. I was flipping through these. Swamp. A hill. Some different plain. One of them's blank because you don't need every square inch covered. A little pond or lake. Stone deposit. Gold deposit. Iron deposit. Then I got a couple forests. right? And those get then overlaid. So you can see they're not fully colored because you don't want the color to compete too much. The territory claiming is the most important bit. But I do need to do rivers. So let's take a crack at that real quick. But for these, we kind of need to do it a different way. All right, so, oh, come on, Photoshop. Use your brain. All right, so we got to set ourselves up a little bit of a grid here because we've got to do a bunch of different combinations. And we've already got a level editor built so that we can populate these. So what we want to do is, right, like it's not enough to just build. We'll do a little bit of a map for ourselves real quick. Right, we got to do like a strip across here that tiles. And then we got to do all the corners. But then we've also got to do, we're going to have to do, like that'll be one set. Then we also have to do this thing. Right? And as long as this seam here matches up with this seam here, that can work. Which we might be able to do. In the past, you would set this kind of thing up in Substance or in body paint. Right, and then I guess I have to decide if I'm going to do like 3-pronged ones. Like rivers are probably not going to be randomly generated. I'll probably just hand paint or, editor mode. Me or one of my little design interns. I can get some goblins to do level editing for free. And they don't have to be super balanced. I can balance them with start positions and stuff. So that's one, and then this is what we'll work on today, is just this. We're gonna go find the pond. Okay. Get our one brush that does everything. give a little bit of a shore on this side. And I looked at a lot of like medieval maps, not just like fantasy maps, because Signet kind of sits in a in between space of like it is fantastical, but the delivery is really straight. So it should appeal to history fans, but fantasy folks will enjoy it as well, because it's not realistic. Like there's no expectation about what you need to know in order for it to be fun. That kind of thing. And one of these days, I'll do a little stream, set up the little 3D guys. Those are going to be an asset flip, and I think that's like a useful skill to discuss. All right. The temptation is always to fuss with these too much, and they need to be fairly simple. Like that's, if you go look at the truly medieval maps that we have, they're fairly simple. And I've thought a lot about like do I need to like make these move, make the like should the grass sway on the map? And for now my answer is no. I think there's, because so much of the map gets covered up, right? It's just the play space. The little like the aliveness is going to be in the buildings and the little people on the buildings and stuff. So I talked myself out of making this too complicated. At least for now. Always could change my mind. So really, I just care about the end-to-end wrap. It's too many. It's getting too regular. The spacing's a little too regular here. Doesn't look natural. I cease to believe it, which is the real barometer. Do you believe it? All right, we'll just tease in some more of this stuff. Well, this Nick Cave song might be too sleepy. Gonna have to switch it, man. And the Pacers play tonight. Gotta be ready for that. All right, we're not gonna worry about getting this exactly precise right now. But we are gonna put in our approximate. Oh, turned snaps on earlier and now I regret it. Turn off snaps. I know what the hotkey is. Don't give me that, Photoshop. There we go. That's way off. Like we have grid lines. Don't we? I didn't make that up. Yeah, there's grid lines. So it doesn't have to be exactly right. All right, that's fairly close. Let's put some rocks in the shore. It's kind of a nice little thing without getting too carried away. You know, we don't want to go full Bob Ross and start, you know, oh, here's a little log, and I don't want it to repeat that much. Plus, it's the background. Right? Like I was saying earlier, don't we're not here to paint a tile set. We're here to make a video game. Must not lose sight of the mission. All right, we'll get rid of our grid. Now, something to keep in mind, and why I like having a tan background in here, this is maybe even a little bit dark, right, is the page isn't white. Right, if we switch back over here, the page is yellow, quite yellow. So we want to, right, the grass space is really going to be that yellow. Oh, paint on the wrong layer. Put that back to white for now, just so the as we look between the two, the like the color perception is the same, right? Like the working on a toned ground, way better for general illustration, but to try to color match across things on different ground is quite tricky. You got to be like a real painter for that. I just play one on TV, as they say. I don't think these line up. these two ends. We should maybe fix that real quick before we go further. Oh dear. And you'll notice, like, I'm not like even in the one I did earlier here. There's like little goober edges. That's fine, right? Some little monk is frantically painting all these little maps for you to fight over. So it's not going to be precise. There's probably a fancier way to do this now. These days. But I only know the back in my day. Look, we nailed that one. Good job, past us. Okay, it's a little bit too dark, but that's okay. All right. So we'll now offset it back. Go back here to our painting layer, or our underpainting layer. Fix up our little bit of shore mess. And like we talked about earlier, right? The precision doesn't really have to be perfect. The grid will hide many errors. We can erode all sorts of little pieces with procedural noise. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Now, what we got to be careful of is, because of the kind of brush we're using, it's fairly noisy. Like, it will hide a lot around the edges, but it will also it can also show edges because of its cloudy pattern. So we've just got to be careful about how we right. And we're going with lighter shorelines here, and a little bit bluer at the bottom of the like little beach line edge here. Like, that's some bounce light. All right. So now we'll offset this one. We'll offset this one. Now they line up again. And we can come back in here. We can do this edge where it matches. And we'll just do it again. Give ourselves a little more room to work with, because you see that that was like kind of getting into where it was going to produce a weird shape. It's like a normal texture painting problem. It's like, hey, I gotta hide these seams. So for those of you who just know me from foliage render, I've been making video games now professionally, full time, for over 15 years. And Dice Wrench is my consulting and asset store entity. We successfully kickstarted a Gear VR game in the past, but mostly what we do is technical art solutions for clients. But with foliage render getting out there and the industry kind of falling apart, pushing to wrap up Signet here, which has been cooking in the background for us for a couple of years, but I've maybe worked on it 2 or 3 months total. Put very little actual time into this thing. Built a lot of core tech that's really fast and efficient. Handles a lot of the table stakes stuff, and then that technology is licensed to a bunch of our clients. So, you know, I have an entire asset bundling paradigm that's built for large scale game as a service mobile game, right? And it's getting constantly improved for them and going through their QA process and everything. So if you're in a spot where you need that kind of thing, you can hit me up. Art pipeline stuff. I was technically art director on Star Trek Timelines back there. So I did art direction for about a decade. Got tired of waiting for engineers to do stuff for me. And then taught myself how to write shaders. And here we are. A million years later. Oh, we got to do a little bit of sand, don't we? Look, we got this little... Just go back in here and paint this stuff in. Yeah, so for a long time I used to just get paid to draw pictures, which is it's a cool gig. I can't complain about that at all. But you know, as a developer, I was looking at it and saying to myself, like, gee, they only need me to draw pictures right at the beginning of the pipeline. Like, if I ever end up at a company that's just going to make one thing and then kind of be done, I just, you know, run their MMO forever, they may not need me full time. It's maybe not a thing. And like, I draw pretty good, but I don't draw the best. But my first gig in the industry was texture painter. I already knew how to 3D model before I even got to art college. Here in Indianapolis, the company that made Deer Hunter and worked on some Duke Nukem stuff was downtown. There was a contract house that worked on that stuff. So I got 3D Studio Max when I was a kid from an auction. And that's a good way to start. All right, we got to cut out this little stone. Okay. Our seams are all fine, so we don't care that we've offset this a couple times now, so we're going to keep it how it is. Let's save before we get carried away. I do have to decide, like, if rivers will have, they probably need to have directional details so that bridges can be placed on them in the appropriate direction. I'm gonna have to think about how I want to define that data at some point. That's the kind of thing that you just, you know, you're not like, oh, here's some general annoyance I'm gonna have to figure out. Oh, come on. Okay, I did make a copy. All right, so we've got this. The problem here is I want to move. Oh, see, that didn't snap because I turned snaps off. Remember like 10 minutes ago when I got really mad about snaps? There you go. So we need this layer in here. Oh, you can't see my layers. I added a layer. The curse of two monitors and trying to live stream. Sorry. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. Nope. Bring the whole thing. Come on. Right. I want to make sure that I get this vertically aligned in the right space there. So now I can do a down curve off of this piece. And then maybe I'll do an up curve. I don't think I'm going to rotate tiles. You know, like I don't want the forests pointing all wonky directions, right? Like it's kind of easier if it all goes the one way. It's easier to like get your brain if they were all going crazy directions. Like think about Carcassonne, like the board game. You've seen Carcassonne? That's a good one. Because the tiles can kind of all get placed wherever because all you have to do is line up the roads, which feels very medieval because the perspective is always a mess. It's like they knew it was happening, but they didn't quite have it figured out. That is very tricky. It's very tricky to like capture that and have it not suck. I'm not sure I got it 100%, but I got something. All right, so from here we could do a down and an up, and then we'll do our loop over here. And then I guess we should do one from the other side also. Because we can paint these and then we'll scooch them over. So that's fine. So before we do that, let's go ahead and do the loop because that all fits in here. We don't have to think too hard about that. So we'll call that one strip and we'll call this one loop. Yeah, I copied these over here. I keep forgetting I haven't switched back. You guys are slightly more complicated streaming setup than just streaming Star Wars Legion on Tabletop Simulator, which I do a bunch. So we'll do a down and an up here, and that would also let us do a U-turn off of this end. We'll do the same thing off of this, down and an up, and then just keep building them out. But we'll go ahead and we'll do this loop that we mapped out before right here. We'll come back to this. But I'm going to keep these in here because I want to get the size about right. You know what I mean? All right. The completely reliable measurement of doing one of those. It's a completely professional work environment. Only the best advice. That's what you get here. It's fine. All right, that little nub, no good. Doesn't look natural at all. Get rid of our copies. We missed. Kind of missed again. Much better. It's not really mission critical, to what we're doing, but look a little goofy. All right, we'll do like a little more shore on this corner, just because that's how it worked out. Like there's more of a bank. Maybe we'll do some kind of, little hangy grass bits. Erase some of this. Like it's eroded a little bit, You know how that happens, how it washes out and then the grass is like, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't figured it out, being good at pictures is just like noticing a lot of stuff. It's a lot of it. Just pay attention when you walk around. The world's really interesting, so you might as well anyway. They didn't make it boring, did they? All right. Something else to keep in mind is the board is 8 by 8, so we'd only ever loop this twice. And we could even do these two and then do the strip and then do the other two, which would hide the repeat quite a bit. So we don't have to get too cute with like multiple corners. It's going to be like one river most of the time. And maybe we'll do Ys. I do think that's maybe a thing. Okay, so with that in mind, do we even need this loop? Painting this loop is like a very tile mappy way to think about it. Not sure we do. Let's go back to this. We're going to do a down and then we're going to do an over. Change of plans, kids. Because I think we're much more likely to use that. You know what? Let's even do it. Let's do it 2 and then maybe we'll do a separate one that's 3 long. I think this is a better plan. Better plan. Right. We have my level system can take any number of inputs. Right. You just need a module that tells you what tile to put at a given square. So there are random ones that generate random, and then there's pre-made ones. So all the ones without rivers could be random. And I could maybe even set it up where it's like combines those two things. So I can make, 15 different river layout setups, and then it will randomize everything else, but it'll leave the rivers, that kind of thing. That'd be quite easy to set up. we go. It is a little tricky to put rocks down like this that don't end up too evenly spaced. You got to be careful with the, you know, with your what your idea of random is. Can be a real trap. Right, and like I don't have to put anything right there. That's one where it's like, ooh, put something right here. Like, no, not gonna do it, you know? I'm not gonna paint one here because the grid line, remember, we're gonna have grid lines. Those get put in procedurally anyway. Um, so what this sort of means is that we are a little bit chained to which pieces can initiate this corner. Oh, that did not line up. Magic wand. Nobody asked you. There we go. That's better. Just gotta line these up just well enough. Like I like that line, but it's just a little too distinct, you know? All right. That'll work good enough. Whoops. Come back, picture. All right, we're gonna move these two on top. Our reference pictures here. Gonna get rid of that. And get us back to, like last time, that's pretty good. All right, we'll go for about 15 more minutes, then I'll wrap up the stream. It's been a nice little chunk of business for today on this. We'll have a try to keep streaming every day. It's a good little way to kind of focus for me. You know, you can spend a lot of time overthinking stuff. You know, miniature painting actually taught me to keep an eye out for that stuff. It's like you'll really just be like looking at the model, being like, okay, next I'm gonna do this, then I'm gonna do that, then I'm gonna do that. It's like just shut up, just paint it. And streaming for me, especially when I'm switching between projects a lot, it makes me like go. Because otherwise I'll be like, what was I doing here? What should I work on? And like this makes me find something that's digestible for human consumption. So sort of under the duress of a short time frame, I can very quickly be like, oh, all right, I got 2 hours to work on this. What's something I can knock out in 2 hours? You know, you got to think about the key for me for getting projects done, uh, which is part of why I'm so excited about Signet in general, besides it just being a good game, is it's the first time that I've really built a project around the way my brain likes to make things. And so the entire thing is not designed around what's market parity in this space, right? Like early on in my career, that's exactly what I would have done. I would have been like, okay, strategy games in the year 2024 need to have these 15 features. They got to have a menu with all these options. I'm just going to copy paste, sort of the requirements from the other successful entities in the market at the time. And like that's a perfectly reasonable way to approach design, and I think there's a lot of utility in reverse engineering market expectations. I think that's it. That is important. But if you never get done, who cares, right? Like I don't just want to goof around. Uh, a lot of us got into this industry or are sort of tinkering or whatever because we played games when we were kids and those were, fun, formative experiences. And, now, it's incumbent upon us to make those things available to the next round of poor suckers that'll get drawn into this mess. Right? So if we don't ship anything, there's nothing to play. There's nothing to form the next generations, You see the problem? So I got to get done. So Signet is just sort of built around everything being modular. The whole system is modular. What like the phases of play is a modular system. The narratives are a modular system. So any day I feel like writing, I can just go write a little story chunk and plug it in and it just works, right? Everything's built on modules. The tile bonuses for the different little buildings you put down, all that's modular. So it's really built around the way I want to work, right? I don't want to make Fireball. I want to make AoE damage module. Or probably even more simply, I want to make AoE stat modifier, right? I want to get things down to the little Lego blocks and then. So Signet is built for that. Okay, our seam isn't quite perfect. Gonna try to just button a couple of these lines up. And like I've said, it doesn't have to be 100%, but I also don't want it to be 0%. That's kind of lousy. So there's a little bit of a good rant in there though that I probably shouldn't have gone back to this project or this painting about. Think about how you work. That's a real thing. It took me a long time to think about how I think. It won't take you as long because I just gave you the idea. I didn't have to figure it out for myself. But years of prototyping stuff for clients, I figured out how to get to that realization. It's like, oh, this is the way I like to work. And I don't, that way doesn't work for every developer. I would much rather build a system than iterate a thing a whole bunch, because I believe that the system can make the iteration faster, right? Jason and I don't always agree about this. The do tween sequencers that we looked at when we were putting that particle together is actually a thing I built for a client project. But I do all my work for license, so and the day I did it, like, I spent a day building it, and Jason was like, you could have written 3 lines and been done in 15 minutes. I was like, I know, but they're gonna have notes. And like, when I worked on Tetris for Network, I worked on Network's mobile Tetris, we were doing tween stuff all the time, and they'd be like, oh, can we have a squash in the middle? It's like, well, how long? I don't know, about a second. Okay, so then you gotta go back in there, find the right spot, append that extra tween, add a reference field so you can tween the right thing, then add fields for the delay, and then add fields for the animation curve, and then it take forever to add one thing in the middle, right? Do tween sequencer. Sure. Plus drag object, pick mode. You want to move it around? Just here, you fiddle with numbers all day long. Make it look however you want it to look. That's the way I prefer to work. But I'm lazy, tactically lazy. Tactically lazy, and you should too. Oh, I got a cool email about 3D print stuff. Gotta go read that. All right, I think this is where we'll call it for today. We did a cool particle. We made progress on river tiles, which we needed to do. There's more to do. There's more pieces, but we'll get there. Baby steps. Baby steps. Thanks for folks tuning in. Thanks for coming back. If you watched later and listened to me ramble or mutter softly in the background of whatever you're up to, keep doing them. Keep doing them. Tomorrow, I won't make you sit through me just swearing my way through the stupid LOD crossfading bugs anymore. I've mostly figured out what I want to do there, I think. So, more foliage render stuff on the horizon, and HDRP and VR testing. Very cool, but kind of obnoxious to get started. Too many plugins. It'll be interesting to see what happens with those, but we'll go from there. All right. Thanks, gang.